Today we're going to be talking about a granny, that is a grandmother. What comes to your mind when you think about a grandma? We think about love, we think about peace, we think about unbiased love and excess love. Most of the time, these grandmas even love us more than our parents. Well, this is a mysterious case of Nanny Dolls, also known as the Giggling Granny, the Lonely Heart Killer, the Black Widow, and the Bluebird. Listen and watch this video shortly.
I certainly do. How long would you be in prison? Well, I spent it for life. Would you ever get out? I hope. What would you do if you get out? I would take my daughter's children and put them all four together and try to raise them.
Now, we might be wondering why this granny, this grandma, is actually sentenced to life in prison. She looks harmless, right? Well, I would advise you all to pick up your popcorn, sit back and relax, and listen to the case of Nanny Doss, the giggling nanny. Nanny Doss is an American serial killer. She was responsible for the death of over 11 persons. Yes, she's also referred to as the giggling granny, the Black Widow, the Bluebird killer, and also the Lonely Heart killer. Now, we might be wondering why she was given all of these names. Her actual name is Nancy Hazel. She was born November 4th in the year 1905. She was one of five children. They were poor. At the age of 5, Nancy was stopped from attending school, even though she was even poor in reading, but she actually loved reading. Now, the father was James, who is the father, was abusive and a controlling father and a husband. He stopped the children, he restrained the children from watching TV, wearing attractive clothes, putting on makeup, attending social events, and the rest, all in the name of he didn't want them to be molested or raped. It was that controlling that Nancy and her siblings never had a social life. Imagine at the age of 5, Nancy was already working in the farm. She wasn't attending school. They were all farmers and they were poor. So they were just getting by with life that way. At the age of 7, Nancy and her family were going to visit a relative. They were on a train, and suddenly this train stopped, and Nancy hit her head on a metal bar in front of her. Though because there was no blood, the family didn't actually give much thought to that. But this actually resulted in severe headache, blackout, and depression. After that incident, nothing was said about that. Now they went back home in a way to actually escape the abusive and the controlling father from her home. She was actually reading her mother's romance magazine. Now, in this romance magazine, there was a column. Remember then, this is the 90s, there was nothing like website, there was nothing like data, there was nothing like television. There were just magazines, fashion magazines, romance magazines, and the rest. Now, Nancy was one of our hobby was reading this romance magazine, and then there's this column called the Lonely Heart column. This is a column where the two different strangers meet and they have this Prince Charming kind of love story. So Nancy was so addicted to this column because she couldn't wait to get married, she couldn't wait to have her Prince Charming, she couldn't wait to fall in love and leave her father's house. Now, her first marriage was at the age of 16. She got married to a man named Charlie Braggs. Charlie Braggs was an only child of his mother. So after the marriage, she moved in and they just got married after just 4 months of knowing themselves. With her father's approval, of course, they got married. After the marriage, she went to stay with the mother. Now, the mother was this kind of mother-in-law. She had the same attribute of her father. She was very controlling. She didn't give Nanny space and time in the house. In fact, the son didn't even have time for his wife. He was always with his mom. He was actually a mommy's boy. And with all of this going on, Nancy actually produced 4 kids in that marriage, 4 girls. After which, with time, her husband Charlie Braggs was actually cheating and she was so unhappy in the marriage. Remember, this is a child who was reading column art. She had this idea about the husband being Prince Charming, finding love and the rest. So she was so unhappy and depressed in this marriage that she started drinking and smoking heavily. Then one fateful day, 2 of her middle kids died mysteriously. They died of food poisoning. 1 minute they were okay, the next minute they were dead. And after this incident, Charlie, the husband, fled with his firstborn daughter, known as Melvina, and he left the last born with Nanny. Yes, after fleeing, Nanny was just alone with Florina, which is the last born, who was still a baby or a toddler. Then, after years, he came back and decided to ask for a divorce. And by this time, he had met someone else who was also a divorcee, just like him. And after the divorce, she got divorced and he left Melvina with Nani. Now, Nani was left with two daughters. And after the marriage was over, she decided to go back home to her mother's house since the marriage was over. Now, just a year after meeting, after divorce rather, she got married to husband number two. Husband number two, known as Frank Harrison. Frank Harrison was also an alcoholic and an abuser. He was an abusive alcoholic. But surprisingly, this marriage actually lasted for 16 years. Now, while all this whole event, the man being adulterous, being abusive, and being an alcoholic, there's this particular incident that happened. Melvina, who is her firstborn daughter, finally got married, had kids of her own. She had a 2-year-old son, and this time around, she gave birth to a girl, a newborn child. And after the birth of this child, the baby died. And Melvina, with her old sedative eyes, she saw her mother using a hairpin to stab her daughter with the brain. And when she was finally okay, she asked her husband, "Okay, where's my baby?" And the husband was like, "Your mama said the baby is dead." And yes, truly, Nanny was with a hairpin. She used the pin to stab the baby in the brain, and that was how the baby died. And after the death of this newborn baby, Melvina, who is her daughter, actually started drifting apart with her husband and they actually divorced. Now, the woman, Melvina, was trying to move to get start life all over again. So they're seeing a soldier, and Nanny was not in approval of that. She asked Melvina not to go into such relationship, but Melvina didn't listen. On a fateful day, Melvina left her 2-year-old son Robert with the grandma to watch over the baby for her. And mysteriously, the 2-year-old baby also died of asphyxia. That is known as he died due to unknown cause. And after that was over, she decided to go back to her husband, who is an alcoholic. She mixed a secret ingredient into his moonshine jar of whiskey, and weeks later, he died. And after his death, insurance money was given to her, in which she used to buy a land and a house. Nanny in her 30s right now, still searching for her Prince Charming. After the death of her second husband, she met husband number three, Ali Lanning. Just 3 days after Ali Lanning, through the column art from this romance magazine that she do read when she was a little child, this lonely art column, she met Ali Lanning, and just 3 days after meeting, they got married. Ali was also an alcoholic and he was also a womanizer. And this, she didn't even waste any time. She decided to add a secret ingredients to his food, to one of his meals, and he also died of heart attack. Yes, and when he died, was surprising to her, Ali actually willed his house to his sister. And while all this is going on, she's living with Ali, she's living with Ali's mom. So when she found out that Ali willed his home to his sister and not to her, his wife, mysteriously, the mother slept and never woke up the next day. Then, after which, the house mysteriously got burnt. And when it got burnt, the insurance money came to Nanny, the wife. Moving on to the next Prince Charming, she met husband number four. Husband number four, Richard Morton. Now, before they actually got married, after the death of her previous husband, that's Ale Lanning, she went to stay with her sister. And at this time, the sister name is Dovie. Dovie was actually sick and bedridden at this time. But just upon arrival of Nanny, Dovie died mysteriously. Then she got married to her fourth husband, Richard Morton. Richard Morton was not an alcoholic, but he was adulterous. He was a womanizer. And by this time, her own mother was actually sick and old, decided to come live with Nanny. And even though this one was being adulterous, he wasn't an alcoholic though. Nanny decided to take care of her mother. Her mother mysteriously died of food poisoning, and 3 months later, her adulterous husband died of food poisoning. Yes. Now she moved on. Husband number five. Husband number five is Samuel Dawes. Now, Samuel Dawes is someone who wasn't an alcoholic, he wasn't abusive, he wasn't also a womanizer. He was actually a Nazarene minister. Now, the only issue she had with Samuel Doss was that he asked her not to read this romance magazine that she's so addicted to, or also listening to movies that are not actually educative. So he asked her to read just educative books or educative channels. And she said he was pissing her off. And one day she said, as a loving and doting wife, she baked a cake on this fateful day. This cake was mixed with a secret ingredient filled with poison. And after Samuel ate this cake, he was actually admitted into the hospital. He didn't die though. Maybe it was because he was a prophet or a minister. He didn't die. Maybe God was trying to save him at this time. He didn't die. But while in the hospital, the doctor was actually suspecting foul play. The man had digestive tract issues. Then finally he was released from the hospital a month later. And on getting home, she did a coffee for him. She prepared coffee and was like, "Oh, my husband, drink this coffee to make you feel better." And this coffee was filled with poison. And after drinking the poison, Samuel Dawes died mysteriously. And at this point, the doctor knew that something was wrong somewhere. And he convinced Nanny that, okay, allow us to run an autopsy on your husband's body. You are going to get insurance money, double the amount. And she was like, oh, double amount of the insurance money. She was like, okay, fine. And they ran an autopsy. And that was where they saw a large amount of arsenic. Now, in my body was arsenic. Arsenic is actually a metal compound. It's a poisonous metal compound that, when mixed, when contaminated with food or water, it can cause a whole lot. And it's odorless and tasteless, so it's very difficult. It's actually impossible to detect it. And one of the long-term effects of arsenic is actually heart attack. Remember our husband who had a heart attack and people felt that it was due to his excessive drinking. He had this heart attack. Well, arsenic was actually the reason. And at this point, the doctor contacted the police and Nanny Doss was arrested. And when she was arrested, she finally confessed to killing 4 of her 5 husbands. And the police went back, took out all these bodies from their grave, both her mother, her sister, her husbands, and all of them. They found a large amount of arsenic or rat poison. Those were the secret ingredients of Nanidos. She either adds arsenic or Nanidos, or rat poison rather. This is a way that she does it silently that nobody will actually know. And in total, Nanidos was responsible for the death of 11 persons, which includes her mother-in-law, her sister, her 2 grandkids, her own children, and 4 of her husbands. This is the sad case of Nanny Doss. Please do not let a very friendly and loving face fool you. We do not know the hearts of men. Now, Nanny Doss actually blamed her head. In the sense, I remember when she hit her head on a train, she blamed that was what happened to her, that something must have happened to her brain at that time because they didn't run a test on her or nothing. But in all of this, Nanny Doss was, and why she was given this name, the Giggling Nanny, and the rest, especially the Giggling Nanny, was a name that actually stuck in that era. That was because whenever journalists comes to actually interview her or talk to her, she will actually giggle, explaining how she even killed her husbands or how she killed her mother or her sister. She would giggle about it, laugh about it like it was something you're telling a joke, as if you're telling a joke to someone. She doesn't have any conscience. She didn't actually see the bad she actually did. People called her insane at that time. Now, this is the case of Nanny Doss, the Giggling Nanny, a granny who killed over 11 persons, including her relatives and her husbands. I'd like to hear your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and share. And I also appreciate all my returning subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.